Hey, welcome back to another Habs Summer Target show with hockey coach Frenchy directly for the beautiful country of Thailand on amazing great Monday night, June 23rd, 2025. Hopefully an amazing great start of the week. And of course, this week is a special week. Maybe for me, it's the best week of summer because the NHL draft. That's what we're going to talk about this all week. And we have different things happening during the week. So don't go nowhere. If you want to hear more about what's going on in the NHL Draft Prospect 2025, this is the place to be. So I can't wait to see all of you. Thank for all the people joining us tonight. And of course, the subject of the night will go right there because I think you need to know what's happening. Draft week begins. And the Montreal Canadiens select number 16, 17. And the biggest question for a lot of people asking me all the time is they're asking me what's going to happening for the pick number 16, 17. So we want to go through those pick tonight for the Montreal Canadiens. I have a lot of things. The list of Bob McKenzie. We have also the best prospect for the skater, the physicality of their play, and then their hands, everything like that. So I'm telling you right now, this is going to be a full show with all the news around the NHL because of a trade today in NHL. If you watch my video, I made two videos today. The best of the worst NHL pick by the Montreal Canadiens and the trade about the Anaheim Ducks and the Philadelphia Flyers about the Trevor Zegras. But as said during the week, I'm going to bring more people back. I gave them a couple of weeks off after the long season we got. I think they are refreshed and they are ready to rock and roll the week of the NHL draft. So tonight, guys, we welcome back directly from the Maritime. Dans le Canada, il est retour avec nous ce soir. Et of course, we call him the Recliner Sport YouTube channel. Mr. Devin is in the house tonight.
Thanks for having me, Coach. It's good to be back.
Welcome back, my friend. People asking me where I've been with you, what's going on with you and the family, everything. So
Yeah,
tell
everything's
us what
good.
the summer, I'm pretty sure, is knocked the door in the Maritime.
Yeah, summer's finally here. Things are good. I've been kind of decompressing from the hockey. I'm not a huge fan of watching other teams in the playoffs, so I watched a little bit of it, but not everything. And I've been sort of gearing up for the draft and doing all the off-season stuff that we Canadians fans do, listening to all the rumors and the speculation. And yeah, it's been pretty laid back, but I'm back with you, which is great. And I've also sort of started back with my channel and did a show recently with Jerome Berube of hockeyprospects.com, which is now posted. So we did about an hour together and talked about the draft, and it was really fun. So I'm looking forward to getting back to it. And like you said, this is um, other than other than if the Canadians were in the Stanley Cup final, or on a real good playoff push, this is about the funnest time of the year for me, especially when your team is rebuilding.
You have said that about that. We are really happy to have you. And like you said, our summer is like usually this week, next week, the UF free. And after that, it calm down. Maybe the development camp, whatever they call it, after the draft pick for the Montreal Canadiens. And then after that, a couple of weeks off, then you're going to have the rookie camp, the main camp, and the season restarts. So we will take advantage of the summer at some point to relax a little bit more. But tonight we have a busy week, and then we're going to see you again Wednesday night. The mock draft alternative between four people, guys, is going to be from the top 1 to top 32 and the first round. And they're going to select Marco, Frank, and David is going to join me live. And Randy are going to do the picks 1 to 32. So don't miss the show. Of course, Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So we want to thank a couple of people knocked the door tonight. Mr. Tommy Myers is in the house. I believe Tommy is the first time. If not, welcome back. If you are, hopefully you're going to subscribe, click on the likes, and of course, glad to having you aboard. Martin Besnet de Waterloo, de retour avec nous ce soir. Chris Henson is in the house. Billy Egi also. Welcome back, both of you. Always with us every time. PLW, welcome back. Hopefully, you done well. My preferred pick on order is Herbal and Lekovic, Bear, and Carbono for PLW. Coach for tonight, Jaren Duran with 2 hits. no Freeman tonight for Mr. Gay. Right from Bangkok is in the house between the rain and Bangkok and Thailand. He rained a lot during the summer. Well, summer for us is not so much, say, the third season of the year. So the second year, or the second season of the year, we have only 3 seasons here. And the rain start here in June, more in July, August, September. And then after that, we're going to get the dry season where it's really cool from October all the way to March. So what's happening here? So thanks for everybody being part of the show tonight. We're going to start with what we have. Mr. Devin, we're going to get a little bit busy with everything because first of all, we're the NHL news tonight. And the first thing happening, it's happening a little bit, a couple hours ago. We have a trade in NHL. The Philadelphia Flyers received for the Anaheim Ducks Trevin Zegras in return. They sent Rand Pullen, the first overall pick at 25th, I believe, at 2017, the 45 overall pick in 2025, and the 2026 4th round from the the Ducks to go to the Ducks from the Flyers about this. Look, Devin, I know we're going to be behind, but what do you think about that trade between both teams?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting move. I mean, Trevor Zegras isn't really your prototypical Philadelphia Flyer, but of course, John Tortorella's gone now. So I think, I mean, it all comes down to whether or not Zegras can live up to the potential that he has, right? He hasn't so far. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I guess his first couple years were quite good, but his last couple years he struggled, and he obviously wasn't a very good fit in Anaheim. And you know, I guess it comes down to whether or not he's going to be able to find his way in Philadelphia and sort of come back to where, you know, everybody expected him to be when he was drafted. And if he can do that, then it's a pretty good move for the Flyers. It's a pretty good move for the Flyers if you know, if Zegras can become a, you know, 60, 70 or more point guy who, you know, has a ton of offensive creativity and, you know, would probably be a good match with, you know, with a guy like Michkov, who's a good scorer, right? He's a good finisher. Zegras is a playmaker. So, you know, the two of those guys could work well together. So, again, I think it comes down to whether or not Zegras can get back there or not. But if he does, I think it's a good move for Philadelphia.
Yeah, a great point about that. I think for Anaheim, this is also a good situation for them. That gives some deep depth on the chart. And the Anaheim Ducks right now they have $36 million running for them. So this is going to be very interesting. What's happening with Pat Verbeek, of course. And during the off summer, they're going to be aggressive. They already traded for Chris Grader a couple of weeks ago for the New York Rangers. They already have a couple of veterans like Killorn and Kudos inside of this organization. Plus, now you get Grader and Brandon Pullen. I think the center line is really good center line over there now with Mason McDavid, of course, and Leon Carlson. So this is going to be a very interesting team to run after that. For this, you can see the top RFA for them, and then their extension. What do you expect their contract? So it's very interesting to see that. And for the Flyers, they are approximately $22 million for that. So the Flyers not try to push this sick with their plan, but I think they would like to get some firepower. And that's the reason they get Zegras. We'll see who's going to respond. Unfortunately, injuries bother him. And the last couple of years for Zegras, a 9 overall pick. And we'll see. And now he joined his buddy, Jimmy Trestel. Remember a couple of months ago, or before the season started, they traded Cutter Gauthier to Jimmy Trestel. It was a very good trade for both teams. But now he is very happy to retrieve his buddy, Trestel. He was really upset when they trade him to the Flyers. So we'll see. I think sometime it take 2-3 times before a Flyers find his groove to play in NHL. Tell me about Dylan Strom example as one of them, and we'll see Zegras is going to do over there. If he stay healthy and he back at the way he's supposed to be, I think there'll be a good additional player. Like you mentioned, Mitch Cobb is going to be most benefit of the welcome of the Zegras with the team for the upcoming season. So one more year, by the way, and become after that. I think he's still RFA. If I can recall it, I cannot remember that, but he's still carrying $7 million. But I think after that, he become RFA. So you want to add something before we move on?
No, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's I think it's a good move all around. They didn't have to give up. Philadelphia didn't have to give up very much to get him. So it's I think it could really work out well for the Flyers.
Definitely about that. Zegras is not a second center, Chris. He played both side winger center. I think he'll be a winger. Will be interesting what happened. They lost last year. The Flyers bring Peltier from the Flame. They trade for Farabi over there. So will be very interesting. I think Anaheim is building a very good team. If you look about their lineup roster, the prospect is solid. This is a good team to watch. I don't know if you watch many game of them, but last year was a really good team to watch. Marco and me, we watched them a lot of time. They have a good goaltender, Dostal. They have rumor maybe Gibson get trade for every year get trade, by the way, but we'll see what happening about that. RJ Calabro knocked it out. Welcome back about this. Is not also close a friend with Tresador that you observed about this. The Flyers should use an influx of talent, but they could also use more size as Zegras would give one, not the other. Yeah, you're right about that, Tony. Like comment, Shelton is on the house. GF knocked the door. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks to be a part of the show. And they have a lot of money, Devin. So both the team have 22, 36. I know we have a couple of players to sign, but I think this is going to be very interesting summer for the Island Ducks. I believe this thing is going to get closer and closer to be close to the playoff. One more year, I think that thing will be very good. Where other news in NHL, the Boston signed Mason Lowry, big defenseman, left defenseman. Bienvenue subscriber, Tommy. Welcome, the family.
Welcome, Tommy.
Thanks about that. Algie gave us the contract also in the chat, guys. $3.2 million for Lowry. I think this is a good deal for the Boston Bruins. It's a team right now, they don't know exactly what could happen during summer. But I think overall this is a good additional to have that kind of player inside of the core of the Boston Bruins. So give us a little bit what you think about that deal.
Yeah, I mean I don't think it's huge news. Mason Lowry, I mean, is a good depth defenseman. Obviously, he's not he's not a superstar by any means. He's a third pairing defenseman for Boston right now, and what are they at $3.2 million? Maybe a little bit rich for a third pairing defenseman. Maybe they have some expectations that he can move up their depth chart a little bit and earn that money. But like you said, he's a solid defensive defenseman. He's a guy you can put out there and not really worry about too much when he's out there. He's a big boy, 6'5", 220. Plays a physical game, so he certainly fits the Boston Bruins mold. And they're used to having big defensemen back there. So for again, I don't think he's a guy who is going to make or break your team, but it's always nice to have solid guys in the depths of your depth chart, whether it's your bottom six forwards or your bottom pairing defense. It's nice to have guys like him that you can rely on and you can put them on the ice, and they're not going to go out and score 20 goals for you, but they're not going to make a ton of mistakes either, and they're going to be pretty solid players for you. So it's good for them to get him locked up. Like again, at $3.2 million, you kind of wonder whether that's a lot of money for a third pairing defenseman. But if he can become a second pairing defenseman someday, he not terrible numbers last year. He had 33 points, so pretty good move for Boston.
Exactly. He's been right now Zadorov home. He's a big body, so that's the kind of defenseman you're looking for at the third pairing. And like you said, he's still growing and develop, so he could be joined at top four at some point. He played very well year before that. If you remember the playoff, everything like that, it was just short with first year, but I think that's pretty good for him to get that contract. So we'll see. We welcome again Tommy, a new subscriber of the Hockey National Show, to welcome to the family. We have a few people knock the door, and 26 is in the house. Luciano back in the house tonight, also with Pizza. Salut mon Pizza. Thanks for being a part of the show with us. The fact also, you're right, Tommy, about Tarket and, of course, Zegras. The next news is coming from the Calgary Justin Kirkland, a 1 year deal at $900,000. A center for winger. Play a couple of games this year with the team. It's more depth inside of this organization. And not big sale, not a big signature, but at least Calgary get another player for the upcoming season. But the news is for the New York Rangers. Adam Engstrom signed a 2 year contract, I believe, with the New York Rangers, $975,000. Look, Engstrom is a big body, 6'4", I believe 6'5", a couple older a little bit more, 24, 25 years old. Another player like Kirkland play on the bottom six in New York Rangers. New York Rangers is really interesting what is going happening over there during summer. They make a couple of trades. Chris Drury, you don't know what kind of swimming he's doing in the pool right now, but it will be interesting what he's going to do for the upcoming off summer. They have a couple of money there, but still they're missing a couple of pieces of the puzzle. They talk about Miller, Zimenejad, all of the trade bait, Lafreniere possible, Panarin on his last year contract. So it's a really interesting summer for the Rangers, but it's a strange wild year last year for the Rangers. A bit like the Canucks, Vancouver Canucks, from my opinion. So it was a bit more about that signature. Also, what are your expectations for the New York Rangers?
Well, I mean that's the $1 million question, right? Next, I mean, whenever we look at, whether when we talk about the Canadiens and whether the Canadiens are going to make it back to the playoffs next year, or whether I mean, I think the Rangers are the real wild card. Are they going to rebound from last year? Was last year sort of a one-time thing, or is this the direction that they're headed? Are they headed in a downward direction, and they have to wait until they hit rock bottom before they can start moving up again, or can they make a couple of little changes and sort of return to I mean, they went from being the conference champions to not making the playoffs, and so does that are they are they like Boston, where it looks like they're going to continue to struggle for a number of years before they can come back around, or are they going to be like Washington, where they can make a couple of quick little changes to their lineup and add a few guys and drop a few guys and sort of get back to where people kind of expect them to be. So I don't know that adding Edstrom is huge. I don't know that this is again, the biggest deal in the world, but he's a depth guy on that team. He's a bottom six guy. Again, he's a big body, right? He's 6'7", right? And I think in the games that the Rangers played the Canadiens, he was a bit of a handful at times with his size. At $900,000, I mean, if you're getting a solid fourth liner at that kind of money, then that's pretty good. So we'll see how the Rangers do. It's going to be interesting. I think they're going to have to make some changes, and new coach and all that, and we'll see how it goes.
You're absolutely about that. For the New York Rangers, will be really interesting. We have a couple of the news in NHL for all the we got. Like I said, this is a busy week. You have a buyout. The buyout, DJ Brody, $3.2 million now for the upcoming season. Then he dropped below 100,000 at $1 million. So the Chicago's buyout. Possible other players going to be on the buyout during the next couple of days. They have until June 30 to do that. Not a big news, but it's a part of the Chicago Blackhawks to make some kind of direction. Very interesting. We don't hear about that. We're going to hear that tomorrow. I think it's finished at 5 o'clock Eastern time. The New York Rangers have to take a decision, David, about the fact like they keep the 12 overall pick for upcoming draft, or they going to give to the Pittsburgh Penguins for the upcoming draft. So we don't know yet. Possible if it's the case, the Pittsburgh Penguins were going to draft back-to-back 11 and 12. How you feel about that situation?
About the Pitts, I mean, I feel like the Rangers will give that pick to the Penguins. I think it's pretty much the consensus that next year's draft will be, better than this year's draft. Now, I guess the question is, do the Rangers think they'll be picking at 12 next year, or do they have dreams that they're going to be, back in the mix and picking in the 20s next year? I don't know. hard to say. For me, if I were making I would making, if it were up to me, I would probably give that pick up this year to the Penguins so that I would have a higher pick next year and a better draft. But again, what kind of message are you sending to your team, or what kind of message are you sending to your fans if you kind of concede that maybe next year you're not going to be you're going to be picking sort of in the same range next year as you are this year. So it's a tough call. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, for me, I don't think that the Rangers are going to make a big rebound next year. I don't think they're going to be a whole lot better next year than they were this year. So for me, I would give up the pick now, but it all depends on what you think they're going to do next year.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Possible they gave to that one of there. And tomorrow we're going to have the Hall of Famer selection tomorrow. So we're going to give you a little bit more information about that during the week. Have a couple of players all on nomination. Two of them is Zitno Shara and Joe Thornton. So two pick will be interesting. We're going to see if Silani can make it or not. Every year we talk about Silani at the event. So it will be another. I'm sorry.
Do you mean McGillney?
Timo Silani.
Oh, is he not in? I thought Timo Silani was in already.
No, is it? Oh no, is it? It's not him. It's the kid from Russia.
Yeah, McGillney, Alex McGillney.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting what happening tomorrow for sure for the Hall of Famer. About that G5 or GS, is there anyone in Buffalo that want to be there? Yeah, that's another subject. That's another thing for the Buffalo Sabres for sure. We're going to move on for the next thing to talk about tonight on the show. And we have the NHL Draft 2025. This is a week start today. A lot of things will be ready. The fans going to get excited more and more. We get closer. We have the mock drafts coming. I did my mock draft. I'm going to do another one. Tonight we're going to ask a couple of questions. Going to give you a little bit more what Montreal is looking for, what they're going to do during the week. And Mogilny, PLW, yep, right about that. So we'll be interested in what's happening, of course, during the week. So let's see. LDP, welcome back. By the way, big fans of the Buffalo Sabres. One of you neighbor told me, Devin, for RDP. So let's move on for the NHL Draft 2025. Today was the release of the Bob McKenzie today. And I cut this in 4 pieces of 10 people, 10 prospect players. Are going to be me and Devin behind the screen because I'll give you a little bit more an overview for all of you. I think, Devin, you can see the screen, right?
I can, yep.
Okay, so on the top 10, you can see Sheffer, Meza, Martin, Frondel, Desnoyers, O'Brien, James Higgins, number 7, Brenny Martin, Roger McQueen, Victor Eklam. For the list, you can see there, Devin, for the people in the chat, do you have any surprise there, or do you think you have some kind of, if you think it will be a little bit different of what you see on the graphic, or exactly what you think is going to happen there? Or maybe someone is now in the top 10, should be there, someone should be out of the top 10.
Yeah, one thing you have to remember about Bob McKenzie's list is that he's not. This is not his scouting, so he's not making this list based on who he thinks. His list is generally made based on his communications with like various general managers and executives and scouts around the league. So this is sort of what he's hearing and sort of where he thinks guys will go. That's not to say that his list isn't very similar to others. I don't have a lot of problems with his list. I think you're probably going to see Brady Martin go higher than 8. I think Brady Martin probably goes a little bit higher than that. But otherwise, I don't really see any real issues there. Victor Eklund might go a little bit higher. Roger McQueen, it'll be interesting to see how far he slides with the back injury and how, to what degree that scares off some GMs. Obviously last year with Caden Lindstrom, there might be some managers that are kind of scared of drafting a kid who has a ton of talent, but at 6'5" and with a bad back at 18 or 17 or 18 years old, I think that's going to scare off a lot of people. So I don't see anything really surprising from the list. For me, I think for me personally, I would have Jake O'Brien a little bit lower It's also interesting in his list that his second defenseman is only at number 11, right? You go,
Yeah, we
Schaefer
can
being a
go the next one
defenseman.
if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
This is the 11 to 20.
Yeah. So there's no, other than Schaefer, he's got nobody, no defenseman in the top 10, um, which, is fair enough. And talent wise, that might be the case. But if you're a team that's looking for a defenseman, maybe and there are teams in the top 10 who are going to be looking for defensemen. I think, like, do you jump the queue and go take a guy like Mertka or Smith, or even Aitchison a little bit sooner than where Bob McKenzie has them? So, yeah, it's good. I mean, I think other than the top 4 or 5 this year, I think it's going to be pretty. It's not one of those drafts where you're going to know who the next guy is every pick. I think it's pretty clear that Schaefer's going to go number one. Misa Martone, some Frondel Desnoyers are almost certainly going to be, maybe not in that order, but I think those are going to be the next 4 guys. Maybe Higgins sneaks in there. I don't know. We'll see.
What you feel about 11 20 from his if there's 3 defensemen back to back to back, Marcus, Smith, Edchinson, no surprise there. Bear,
Yeah.
Ansler, Carbonneau, Newsbit, Colts, Rishny, Lakovic.
Yeah.
From 14 to 20, how you feel about that, and what do you think about Montreal are going to select Carbonneau or Newsbit? So I know one day we're going to talk more about this, but right now, when you see from the list of Bob McKenzie, are you excited? Are you surprised Ansler right now is number 15?
Yeah, I am a little bit. I think most of the lists I've seen have him a little bit lower. I think once you're in that, like you say, that 11 to 20 range, I think you could throw all of those guys into a tumbler and just kind of pick. I think you're going to start seeing teams pick for need between 10 and 20, as opposed to picking for the best player available. If you need a defenseman, you're going to go for a defenseman. If you need, because realistically at this stage, there's not a huge difference between these guys. Carter Bear might be the exception. Again, another guy who's dealing with an injury and probably would be rated a lot higher if it wasn't for his injury. He had a partially lacerated Achilles, which has kept him out of the hockey. I think it was in February or March. I think that happened. So he hasn't really played for most of the second half of the season. He apparently is back skating right now. So I think, other than, I think Carter Bear is kind of the guy in that list who, maybe stands ahead of all the other guys. Eklund would probably be another guy. But again, I think if you're looking at between 10 and 20, you're probably, it's going to depend on what you need. So for Montreal, for example, if Carter Bear somehow is still around at 16 or 17, I think they're going to take him, for sure, even though he's not a centerman. He brings, maybe not size, but certainly compete level. He's a guy who fits the mold of what Montreal is looking for. If you're looking for a defenseman, Logan Hensler might be an option for Montreal as well. Again, right-handed, right? Aitchison, I believe, is a lefty. Smith is a lefty. Mertka is right-handed, but he's probably not going to be around in time for the Canadiens to pick at 16. He'll probably be already gone. So again, Bear, Carbonneau, again, not a centerman, but a really, really talented hockey player. Big, not big, but bigger than average, and a really good hockey player. I like Braden Coots. Again, not the biggest guy in the world, but certainly plays a lot bigger than his size. Whereas a guy like Lakovic is bigger, but doesn't really play up to his size. So depends on what you're looking for, right? I think for Montreal, I think it's just as important to get guys who play big as it is to get guys who are big. I mean, we can all remember Michael McCarron and how that worked out when we drafted a guy just because he was big. But again, these kids are young. A guy like Lakovic, is a big boy with a ton of offensive talent, but doesn't really play like a big player. But is that because he's not used to his size? Is that because he's still young? Like, well, is that something that he can develop going forward? Whereas a guy like Braden Coots, who's only 5'11", is really known as a bit of a spark plug and a guy who plays with a lot of energy. So um, I like Coots. Obviously, if Carter Bear could be there for Montreal, that would be, I think, the ideal situation. I mean, that would be the perfect scenario for them to get Carter Bear. I think he's a guy who eventually could play in a top six role, and he also fits the Canadiens mold, right? Like, he's a guy who forechecks. He's a guy who is good in transition. He's good at puck retrieval, that kind of stuff. And we know we end up talking a lot about the Canadiens and their defensive system and all of that stuff. And bringing the guys in who can play that system, Carter Bear fits that mold. So if they got Bear and Hensler at 16 and 17, I'd be pretty happy with that. If they got like Hensler and Coots, I don't think that would be terrible either. So yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, between 10 and 20, it's just kind of, it really depends on what players or what needs the different teams have. And I mean, we also know from the Canadiens too that sometimes your scouting can be, you might have a guy that you really like who might be, he might be rated 25th, but you guys think as a scouting group, the Canadiens might really really like the guy, right? And so they might already have their heart set on a guy who we're not even really talking about.
I'm looking about the draft pick 35 to 44. So because Montreal select number 41, you have a couple of names there. Charovsky, you have Prokhorov, two players playing the MHL last season. One of them is 6'5", a big body, very interesting players. Prokhorov, you have Cole McKechnie, the Sweden players, Wozniak, and then you have the big guy from the Czechia, I believe, Nestrazil, playing the USHL. Wilmore, another program, USA. Evan Rabkin for the USHL. And then you have Wojciech Wong and Eddie Genford, Genboard, and then Max Psinica. Look, 6'5". This list, when you think about possible, what you like the Montreal select at 41, if you have to pick there.
Yeah, I think for the Canadiens, I think those I think they've got 2 picks in the second round and 3 in the third round. I think that's a really good opportunity for them to add some depth in their prospect group. And obviously the holes in their prospect group right now are right-handed defensemen and centermen. And again, with there being some level of focus on size and compete level. So some of the names that you mentioned, as far as forwards are concerned, you got Malcolm Spence. If he were to drop, that'd be a really interesting guy to get. He probably won't last to 41. Let me see here. Like Kurban Limatov is another guy that I've heard is a good big left-handed defenseman. Who else have we got here? Jacob Rombach is another interesting guy, American kid with a really high hockey IQ, but pretty raw. More of a defensive shutdown guy, but a big guy. I believe he's 6'5" or 6'6". He's an interesting guy. You mentioned Simon Wang, who's would become the first Chinese national to play in the NHL. He's a 6'6" defenseman with a lot of talent. He's a really good skater, but not much else. He's a pretty blank slate. He's pretty raw. Yeah, there's a bunch of I think the later you get, Will Horkoff is another forward who would be interesting. He's a 6'5" forward who struggled last year at the USN DDP, but then ended up switching to Michigan and playing with Michael Hage. And he, I think, would be an interesting guy to get. Again, there are some people who have him listed in their first round. There are others that have him sort of in the late 40s. So it depends on whether or not the Canadiens can get him there. You said Jacob Wozniak's another one. Not really a big guy, but a really good hockey player, good hockey sense, pretty physical for his size. Will Moore, you mentioned, I've seen some draft projections have the Canadiens taking Will Moore. Again, a really smart hockey player, perhaps not the biggest guy, but a pretty smart kid. Danil Prokhorov is another interesting one. I don't know whether he'll get there at 41 to 49. He's a Russian kid who's really, really big. And he's kind of, I think of him as kind of like he's a reverse Yuri Slafkovsky. He's really good using his body along the boards to protect the puck and to retrieve pucks, and he's really good that way. But he's got like no playmaking ability whatsoever. Like he literally doesn't pass the puck. I think somebody said that most players will have somewhere between 20 and 25 passes a game, attempted passes a game. There were games last year when he was playing in Russia where he had less than 5. But again, pretty raw kid, and interesting to see where he goes. Mason West is another guy, right? I think we've all heard about Mason West, the college or the high school quarterback from Minnesota, who has recently announced that he is going to focus on hockey after he finishes his senior year of football. So it's there's a lot of guys around that sort of 40 to 80 range who are big, who are physical, who are right-handed defensemen, who are centermen, who the Canadiens can sort of bring into the mix and sort of add to their prospect depth, and hopefully if you draft 6 or 7 or 8 of them, 1 or 2 of them turn into something. So we'll see. Bill Zonnin's another interesting guy too, from Rouyn-Noranda. Really, really smart hockey player. Not that big, but a good athlete. Did really well at the combine. Really high hockey IQ, smart kid. So should be interesting. There's like I said, there's tons of guys in those second and third rounds that the Canadiens can depth kind of guys.
Yeah, around 49, you have some couple of big body for the pick on Montreal they're looking for. Mason West is one of them. You have also Matthew Gard. I think this is the one they're looking really close. Carter Amico is another big body there. Him is interesting because he played only 13 games. He has broken legs on the season, so he missed almost an entire year. But this is going to be a long development like Matthew Gard or Mason West on that one. And if we come back, guys, on the pick number 41 for the Montreal Canadiens, for me, Wilmore be a really interesting pick if they can get him. I'll be shocked if Wozniak is still at 41, guys. So Prokhorov, that would be a very interesting for the Montreal Canadiens. They have those pick over there. So this is the list, guys, of the.
It's interesting. Could I just one thing, quick, Coach? It's interesting. You had the list up there, and I think it had Rombach at 46 or 47, and it had Limatov at 48 or 49. And hockeyprospect.com, that's Jerome Berubé's baby. Their report, they have Limatov at 16 and Rombach at 19. So it just shows you how once you get past a certain point, it becomes very subjective from one person to the other, who you might see as being a good and a good prospect at that range.
Exactly. It's called we call this the tier, and that would be very interesting about that. And then on that draft, you have a lot of small players. After example, like 50, whatever it is, so you're going to get like 60, 70, 80. It's 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", 5'9", 5'10". It's constantly like that. And you have a bunch of goaltender after Ravensburgen and the kid from Canada, the goaltender, even
Kovac.
Yeah. After that, it's all together. The 5'6" kid around the European or the Russian kid. So it'll be very interesting what happened that. I'm going to give you guys a couple of information here. The best skater in this prospect, it's one of them. The 3 of them, you have a 10 per category. I took only 3. Potter, Schaeffer, Schmidt for the best skater. Then the best shot, Schmidt, Carbono, and Frondel for the shot release. Look, you can see Schmidt. Schmidt's very interesting case. Played with a Tyler Top and Vancouver Giants last season. Score over 40 goals. It's only 5'7". When you watch him, you see DeBrincat, Cole Caulfield. Great skater, but the size going to hurt him in the NHL draft. That's not the same talent like the skill like Cole Caulfield, but the kid can put a puck in the net on any range and any opportunity he get. But
It's in.
obviously for him, he'll be stuck and not be in the first round. Some of them put him there, but I'll be shocked he's getting there more late second round pick or middle of the second round pick.
He'd be an interesting one because, I mean, you've got him here, like you see, you've got a kid who's one of the three best skaters and has one of the three best shots in the entire draft, and people are he's probably not going to go in the top 50, and
Yeah,
that's kind of if you're looking to take a shot on a kid, like I mean, I know that there's an obsession with size, but I mean that's and he's a smart player too. He's got good hockey sense. Like there's a lot going on for that kid, and it's really
yeah.
interesting to hear a kid who's got those talents, and nobody really seems to want him.
You're absolutely about that. We're going to move on with the best hands and the one competitive the most. Ricky Lee, Jake O'Brien, and then L.J. Mooney. Mooney is another young player. He's got a broken leg at the beginning of the season. He's only 5'7", 5'8". Another Schmidt, honestly, but he can put the puck in the net. Then the one competes the more Brandy Martin, Kashan Edgenson, and Victor Eklam. Any surprise there or any player you want to talk about specific one?
Well, I mean, I think under compete, I think you have to include Carter Bear in there as well. I think Carter Bear would
Yeah,
be
they are the top 10, so it's just they are the
yeah,
top three right there, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's yeah. Again, like I mean, again, it's funny when you're talking about these skilled guys. You got Lee, you got Mooney, you've got Schmidt. Like these are all guys who probably are not going to go. Very possibly not going to go in the first round just because of their size, right? And Riker Lee, L.J. Mooney, these are guys who are very talented hockey players, but just by virtue of size, they're not going to make it. And I'm always, obviously you have to account for size, but I'm always hesitant when I hear, if the first sentence about somebody's scouting report is about their size, whether it's because they're too big or whether it's because they're really big or because they're too small. I always like to dig a little bit deeper because, sometimes you can look at Lane Hudson, right? I mean, we don't have to look that far to figure out that sometimes you can hit the jackpot um, by putting that concern over size aside and taking a chance.
You're absolutely about that one over there. I just answered someone. The last two one on this one, who are physical, Martin Etchinson and Phillips. And then the best 200 feet guys, so the guy can play on the both sides of the game. Khaled Denoyer, Milton Castrin, and then we have Cole Reshny on you have Kess. Every category have 10 names, but I gave you three of them right there. Look, this is the reason why Martin is the top 10 right now. That's the reason Etchinson is the top 15. Castrin and Reshny is going to be a first round pick. Would depend what they're going to get out, but they are the great hockey player. That's the reason they are the top of the NHL Draft 2025. So, any specific player you want to mention on that list or someone else?
I would include Coots in the best 200-foot players. I think he's a pretty good all-around hockey player. I mean, Desnoyers, I think, is the poster boy. I think he's kind of like Desnoyers would be like a Macklin Celebrini light kind of thing, right? A guy who just does everything really, really, really well. Like he's not a superstar at anything, but he's really good at everything. Gastron I really like as a player too. Probably a bit of a reach for the Canadiens at 16 and 17. I like Coots over Reshny. I don't know why. I've just got a feeling. I mean, they're about the same size. But yeah, no, I think Coots, Braden Coots should be in that 200-foot category as well.
Awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the NHL prospect, Martin McQueen Reshny coach. For some reason, and I would want to mention, I would like to hear from you guys in the chat and also Devin. And don't forget, everybody, to click on the like. If you don't mind, that'd be great. Subscribe to the Hockey Live Show. Also, McQueen, no. Let's go with Potter Martin, the first one. Some of them put him on the top three. Some others put him late, between 6 to 10. And just give us what you thinking would happen with him, and if you put him on the high, on the low, what the reason behind that, and go from there.
With Martone.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Martone. I mean, he obviously has the size. Um, he's a really he's a really good, like, he's a finisher. Like, he would be a he. I mean, he would be a really, really, really interesting combination. Like, if the Canadians somehow were able to get up to that part of the draft and get it, like him playing with Ivan Demidov would be really, really, really fun to watch. He's got a ton of hockey sense. He's not so much of a playmaker as he is a guy who finds open space, and sort of, finds those dead spots in the defense, and he's able to get open for good scoring opportunities. Which, again, playing with a guy like Demidov would be, a guy who is a playmaker and can find guys, in situations like that. I think, that would be a really, really interesting combo. I like him in the top three or four. I don't think that that's an issue for me. I think he belongs there, and I like his game. I think he'll develop a little bit more into more of a playmaker as he gets older and matures. But again, a really, really high hockey sense. Probably doesn't play up to his size just yet. I mean, what is he, almost 6'3", 210? But that'll come as well. But I really like him. I think he played at the World Championships this year for Canada, and didn't look out of place. So I like Martone. Do you want me to go through the other ones, or do you want to go through them one at a time?
I just finished with Martin. Martin remind me
Yeah,
a lot Matthew Nice, in my opinion, in NHL. For Martin, I think Martin is big body, can put the puck in the net, by the way. Good hands. So
absolutely.
would be interesting round. Now, Roger McQueen is all about his health. Are you afraid he's going to be out of the top 10, or someone before the top 10 would take a chance, like the Columbus take Caden Lindstrom and number 4 last year, that opened the door for the Montreal to get Demidov. So only on the ranking, where do you feel him? Top 10, or he's going to be out of the top 10, or maybe a specific layer?
I mean, if he wasn't injured, he would definitely be in the top two or three. I think he would be right up there. I think how far he slides will come down to, at what point in the draft is there a team that says, we'd rather take a chance on this guy, on Roger McQueen, than the guy who we think is the best available player, right? So when they get to the point where, the best available player is so and so, but we think that the risk to take Roger McQueen is worth more than that, then they'll take it. A team that maybe feels comfortable with their roster and can take a chance on a guy. I Does he slide out of the top 10? I don't know. It's hard to say. You and I haven't seen the medicals, right? Apparently, the teams at the combine were given his medicals. So the Canadians, for example, would have had an opportunity to have their own doctors review his medical reports and determine whether or not this is an injury that is risky, whether it's an injury that isn't going to be a big problem. Obviously, like you said, Caden Lindstrom last year not playing a single game after being drafted is going to be in everybody's head a little bit. So yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, at what point is there a team that can afford to take a chance on a kid who may or may not turn into it? I mean, I don't know. Like, they're certainly not going to take him at number 4, like Columbus took Caden Lindstrom last year. That's pretty sure.
Yeah. Rishny, coach, the reason we talk about him, I want to talk about him, is two players, small, 5'10", 5'11", all on the range of the Montreal Canadiens. Very smart hockey player, good skater. One is not fast like the other one, but very great hockey players. Rishny, honestly, both play on the international level. They did very well. But at the end of the day, um, what do you think they're going to be draft, or what do you think Montreal should pay attention, or one of them could be selected for the Montreal, or you don't expect that?
Reshny and Coots.
Reshny and Brandon Coates.
Yeah, I mean, they're similar players as far as their size is concerned. They're both really skilled. Reshny struggled in the first half of the season, but some would argue that he was the best player in the Western League in the second half of the season. Had a really good playoff. Was a leader on his team in Victoria. 5'11", 180. So thick for he's not a tall kid, but he's pretty thick at 180. Like you said, he's not a terrible skater, but he's not the fastest kid in the world. Good hockey sense, smart on the ice. What sort of leads me to Coots over Reshny is more about his Coots to me, they're both similar in size, but Coots is a little bit more of a dog. He plays bigger than his size. And I like that about Coots. Coots also, I believe, was the captain of the team in Seattle this year. I think that's right. And he was also the captain of Team Canada at the U18. I think U18 or U17. So, he's got some leadership there. There's, the Canadiens, we know they like to go for those character guys, the guys who, have a little bit of that sort of that little bit extra, like they do well in interviews, that kind of thing. So, I think, Coots' compete level maybe a little bit higher than Reshny's. He uses his size. He's about an inch taller, about 10 pounds heavier. I think they're both good options for the Canadiens. I think, I mean, they're pretty close to one another, I would say. For me, the Canadiens have, I think put a bit of a premium on, size. We keep saying size, but I don't think it's necessarily about physical size. I think it's more about how big you play as a hockey player, right?
Compete.
You can be, you can be 6'2" and super, low compete, and you might be a great hockey player. But if you're looking for size, it's sometimes like Carter Bear, right? Carter Bear's not a big kid, but I think he answers that. He answers that question for the Canadiens. He fulfills that need. And so I think that for me, if I'm choosing between Coots and Reshny, I prefer Coots. But again, I don't think there's a whole lot between the two of them.
All right. We talk about almost like 45 minutes, 50 minutes of everything. We're going to talk about more about the Montreal Canadiens, guys. As the beginning of the week of the NHL, Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon will be really busy this week. A lot of different options, a lot of different predictions. And everybody is right now. We want to see what is going to develop Friday night. We're going to be live Friday night, guys, at 7 o'clock p.m. for the NHL draft. We're going to do the entire NHL draft Friday night from 1 to 32. We're going to give us your comments about the age pick of Montreal Canadiens. And Saturday is different because it's a 1 minute draft pick, 3 minutes. It's quick, it's fast. We're going to be there and to report to you the selection of Montreal Canadiens at 41-49. And then after the third round pick, guys, a 4th-round pick, we're going to maybe get out of the streaming because it's a long day. It's about 8 hours, 9 hours, Devin. So we're going to really focus on that. We're going to have a review all the picks, guys, Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. And, of course, you're going to get my contents every day about what happening with the Montreal Canadiens. So let's dive in about the Montreal Canadiens now for all of you. And let's see what we got for all the fun players like this. We have a couple of news, and I'm going to ask questions for the event and for the people in the chat before we talk about NHL Draft Montreal. Tobesh, some reports said possible could be with American Hockey League. So Montreal is on the market to get a goalie. What do you feel about that? Are you agree, disagree, or what do you feel about what could happen with that situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as far as the Canadiens being in the market for a goaltender, I don't know that they're like. Again, I think the Canadiens thing with Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton is they're going to explore every opportunity and every possibility that comes across their desk. Right? They're not the kind of people who just say, "Oh, I don't really care about that." Like they're going to explore everything, which is I think one of the reasons why the Canadiens' names comes up in so many rumors because they don't just ignore things. So does Dobesh play in the NHL or the AHL next year? Honestly, I think it comes down to training camp. If the Canadiens do bring in another goalie, whether the intent is for him to be a goalie in the American League, it's going to come down to, is Dobesh one of the two best goalies at training camp next year? If it's Dobesh and Montembeault, I mean, I think we're pretty sure that Montembeault is going to be in the NHL next year. But I mean, if Primo shows up at camp and Dobesh shows up at camp, and Primo is way better than Dobesh at camp, I think Primo probably starts the season in the NHL. I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear that. But if if Primo comes in and is, lights out and Dobesh struggles, I think Dobesh goes down to the American Hockey League. Fowler, I think it's pretty clear that Fowler is not going to play in the NHL next year. I don't think that would be very wise. I think they need to give him some time to develop and whatever. But if the right deal comes across Kent Hughes' desk for a goaltender, and he makes a deal that he thinks will help the team, and he can do it at a price that the team can afford, then maybe he brings somebody in. I really don't know. But again, I think at the end of the day, whether or not Dobesh plays or starts the season in the National Hockey League or in the American League will come down to training camp and how he performs at training camp and whether he earns the job.
Yeah. The key behind that is maybe Primo is not returning with Montreal Canadiens. That's the reason behind that situation. They let it go, and that will be figure out something else. So they have to find an extra goaltender at some point to play. At least they can use Luc Cavallin to the 12-year alliance. But to do that, they will have to be sure Tobesh is the backup number two. They have an idea what they look like for the upcoming season, the roster. They feel comfortable to have Tobesh there. So
I think they're comfortable that Dobesh is capable of it, and in that sense, I think they are. They're not overly worried about letting Primo go. But if they do bring somebody in to replace Primo, I think that Dobesh will be in competition with whoever that person is to get the starting the backup job in Montreal. But I think after this year, I think you would feel comfortable that Dobesh is at least capable of playing at the National Hockey League level.
yeah, again, will be interesting what happens. We wish a good night for Tommy. We look forward to see you next time, my friend. Thanks again to be a part of the show. Vladar will sign with the Devils. Renit with Max Strom, Kenneth. Possible. Jake Allen will be available at some point also. So it'll be very interesting. The second one, Mike Madison could stay with the Montreal Canadiens if he's willing to get a contract, a good deal for both parties. So do you see Madison leave the building or stay with the Montreal Canadiens? He is available for an extension contract July 1st on his final year contract with the Montreal Canadiens. So what are your expectations about that situation with Mike Madison?
I mean, I don't see Mike Matheson going anywhere. I don't think he wants to go anywhere, and I suspect the team wants him to stay. I think that Matheson's role will have to diminish over time if he stays with the team. Like, he's not going to be the number one defenseman playing 25, 26 minutes a game, for the next 5, 6, 7 years. I personally would be happy if he stayed. I think he's a good defenseman. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a good influence on the rest of the team. He's a local boy. Is he willing to, I mean, he's not going to stay unless he's prepared to, like I said, accept that diminished role and perhaps also the diminished paycheck that comes with it. He's not, I don't know exactly what he makes right now. 6 something, I think, is it? His current contract. So I don't like, if he stays, it's not going to be in the same role he's currently in. So, he's going to take less money, or maybe the same money, which will be less because the cap will go up. And, he'll obviously, whether it's right away or over a period of time, I think you'll start seeing his ice time go down. But again, he's a solid defenseman. He plays a role on the power play. He plays a role on the penalty kill. I know a lot of people don't like him for a number of reasons, but I think at the end of the day, the positives with Mike Matheson outweigh the negatives, in my opinion, significantly.
Yeah, with the departure of David Savard, I think you need someone experienced at the point. I think that's the reason, and he fit very well inside Montreal Canadiens. I don't see anybody can pick up all the 25 minutes per game they have right now for the Montreal Canadiens. Play on your power play, play on the PK. He's a great skater. Whatsoever, he makes some turnover part of the game at some point. So I expect him to sign a contract extension with Montreal Canadiens next season. Kirby Duck is in shape, ladies and gentlemen. They look like last season was not ready for the camp about his physical date. But look like he is in shape right now. For the last news we got is an update about Kubidak. He's training, he's ready. That's a good news to hear that. So, what do you feel about Kubidak for the upcoming season with the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, I mean, this is a make or break season for Kirby Dach, right? I mean, he's, I'm one of the few who thinks that Kirby Dach deserves another chance. I think he'll get another chance. You heard the press conference, end of season press conference with Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, where Jeff Gorton talked about, him coming into camp in better shape than he did last year. Um, Doc's a good hockey player. Like, he's shown the ability to be a very good hockey player. So, if he can get back to the player he's capable of being, that's a great thing for the Montreal Canadiens. And at this point, if he doesn't show up to camp in shape, that's not bad luck. That's not, mental. That's just, you didn't work hard enough. And, if you're not working hard enough, then, it's pretty hard to make excuses for that. You can make excuses for a lot of things, as far as, what happens on the ice. But I mean, if you show up to camp out of shape under these circumstances, then, that's, you really don't have anybody to blame but yourself. So I expect he'll show up in shape. It sounds like I'm not sure what report I'm sure there's a report out there that says that he is in shape. But again, I think this is part of the atmosphere, or the culture that the Canadians are, I think, trying to develop, as well as bringing in guys who work hard. As crazy it is to say it, about a 20-year-old, a kid like Lane Hudson is probably a positive influence on this group, like a guy who works, right? He's always working on his game. And, I think that probably wears off on his teammates. And, when you've got a kid out there who's working as hard as Lane Hudson is, it's kind of hard to walk into the dressing room when you're being lazy. You feel like a bit of a jerk, right? If your teammates are working their tails off and you're not, that's a tough situation to be in. So I expect that Doc will show up in good shape, and that he'll be given an opportunity to return to his old form. And if he does, then I think I think that's a really good thing for the Canadiens.
Michael is going to be bigger. He's working on his muscle mass right now for the summer. He wants to get a little bit more muscle to be ready for upcoming season. That's the good news. A very young player want to be that area, but he's really focusing right now on his training for the summer. It's going to be a big year for him. They lost a couple of great hockey players in Michigan, and Michael Edge is going to be play a big role with the team. Not easy team. It's not going to be a powerhouse team next season, but I think Edge could have a good year overall. But he's glad to hear that the young man is take care about his situation for the upcoming season. So for only a small use for Michael Edge. Michael Edge was selected 21st last year by the Montreal Canadiens.
I think that Michigan, they've signed Ivan Kovic, will be their goalie, right? So Ivan Kovic is one of the top prospect goalies right now. They've got Horkoff, will have a full season there. There's we just talked about Malcolm Spence will be going there, right? So Malcolm Spence is a first round prospect in this year's draft, who, by the way, is also really good friends with Michael Hage. I think they grew up on the same street. And so he's going to Michigan next year. So I think that, they are losing some guys, but I think they're adding some guys as well. And it should be interesting. I mean, and again, we talk about Michael Hage putting on size. That's the great benefit of being in the NCAA, right? Is you're not playing 70 games a year like you are in junior hockey. You're playing a lot fewer games, and you get a lot more time to practice and to spend in the weight room. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think college is the right place for Michael Hage, because I've got him here at 6'1", 190, which is not small, but he is a lanky kid, and size will certainly benefit him as he sort of develops towards playing in the NHL.
Christian Dvorak could be gone. He's on his way to get out of the Montreal Canadiens. So is this surprised a bit you or not? He's going to test in the market. We'll see what kind of offer he's going to receive. I think Dvorak would like to leave, but what do you feel about that situation with Christian Dvorak?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, the Canadians are not, I personally wouldn't be like, it wouldn't kill me if Dvorak came back. I mean, I think he plays a role on the team. I think he played better hockey in the last 25 or 30 games of the season. He's one of their only left-handed centermen. He's probably their best face-off guy. So I think he has a role to play. I mean, the Canadians, we hear all kinds of rumors every day about the Canadians are looking for a left-handed centerman who can win face-offs. Okay, well that's great, but you have a guy. He's not the best in the world, and obviously he has his issues, and there's problems with Dvorak. But I mean, unless you can find somebody better than him to replace him, or unless you're prepared to sort of bring in a young player and have him learn at the NHL level and deal with the growing pains that comes with that, then maybe you keep a guy like Dvorak for another year or two. I mean, and maybe he doesn't want to sign a 1-year contract. Maybe he wants to go somewhere where he can get 2 or 3 or 4 years. But I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with him staying under the right circumstances. So is it the end of the world if he goes? Probably not. But it's not the end of the world if he stays either. And it's pretty
Great point.
non-consequential.
Great point about that. I think it's going to be just the money. He's going to get the long-term contract. Will be the final decision for him. The other meeting between the CH and the Patrick Laine. What do you think about that meeting and what it was about? If you think what he can talk about this, he's on final year contract like Mike Madison. They are and Carey Price next season. They are the 3+. So what do you feel about that meeting and what you think is going to happen with Patrick Laine?
I mean, I think the Canadians probably have a pretty strong line of communication with all of their players. Like, I think they probably talk to their players quite a bit about, this is what we see for you. This is, the role that we see you playing on our team. This is what we would like you to be able to do and to be with the team. And this is, this is why we think you can contribute to the team. And, I don't think Laine's, I think Laine's a different person, man. I think, don't get me wrong, Laine is a different human being than a lot of, he's different. I'm not gonna say he's weird or whatever, but he's different. And, I think that we underestimate the degree to which the Canadians like Patrick Laine. I think they like him as a player. I think they like him as a guy. I think they take seriously the role that they've played in bringing him back to hockey and making him enjoy hockey again. I think that, if Patrick Laine plays the way he's capable of playing, I think he's a huge asset for Montreal. So, if they're meeting with him, in June, I suspect it's probably to talk about, this is the vision we have for you as a player on this team. And maybe he's capable of that and maybe he's not. I think we talked about Kirby Dach being in shape. I think Patrick Laine being in shape this year is going to be a huge factor too, right? If he comes into camp like last year, I've read somewhere that, last year when he showed up at training camp, he'd only skated like 6 or 7 times all summer, like, or since he had been previously injured. So, I think he's probably going to show up in better shape, and I think he's going to be better than he was last year. And, again, if he loves playing hockey, I think he's a great asset for the Canadians. If he's lost his love for playing hockey, I think it's probably going to show. And they probably don't re-sign him at the end of next year. So, again, getting back to the question, I think if they're having a meeting at this time of the year, I think it's probably just to talk about his future and what the Canadians expect from him, and and seeing where he's at with hockey and his life.
You're right about that. I think I feel the same way. I think they negotiate with him also about a trade deadline happening. You don't say they trade him, but if you would like to get traded, maybe talk about what location you want to go, whatever it is. So I think it's more about a bit an overview of what could happen the next 12 months with the Montreal Canadiens to know what is his number it's a short-term or a long-term contract, everything like that. And
And I think he likes Montreal. I mean, all indications are that he enjoys Montreal. And what was the comment he made? Somebody was talking to him about he was in Florida on the night that the Panthers won the cup, and somebody said so, and he said something about how, well, I'm pretty happy in Montreal. We beat Florida. We're the only team that beat Florida 4 times last year, and I thought it was a great line. Sounded like somebody who enjoyed being in Montreal.
yeah, would be interesting what happened with that. The CS looking around for the Montreal Canadiens. They have a couple of players on the market right now, and they have some kind of conversation in Montreal with the camp of the Brock Bowser. Anthony Bouvier and the Montreal Canadiens on negotiation right now. We know the relationship Ken use with the agent with Anthony Bouvier in the past. Baron Ayton for the team Utah could be available at some point. We talk about Sidney Crosby could be another option for Montreal Canadiens if Crosby want to get traded. The St. Blues are possible trading or looking to maybe trade Jordan Kyrou. Not necessarily they have to, but they will listen what they can get in return. Nothing wrong with that part. They are the name, honestly, on the market for the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, you have other name you can add there. But how do you feel about that? Do you see Montreal is going to get those kind of players who you feel like, no, they will skip?
I mean, I think the Canadians are looking around, and like I said earlier, I think that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton feel like it's their job to explore all of the options. I don't see Sidney Crosby as being a real viable option for the Canadians. Um, I think they're looking around. I think they're exploring all the options. I think if the right trade comes around, I think they'll make it. What I will say is that I highly doubt if the Canadians make a trade. I highly doubt we'll hear about it in the media, a week beforehand, right? I don't think it's going to be a situation where, we hear about, oh, the Canadians are looking at this guy, and then a week later the trade is made. I suspect that if they do make a trade, it'll be something that will come as a bit of a surprise, and it'll be a guy who we haven't really thought of. And it's, the Canadians are not out there speaking publicly about the moves that they're looking to make. And if the move does get in the media beforehand, it'll probably because it's being leaked by either an agent or somebody else. But I think they're exploring options, but I don't think that they're desperate to make a move. And if the right move comes along, they'll make it.
Yeah. Would be interesting what happening with those kind of players. Again, it's a big work for the Montreal Canadiens, and we see what happening. We're going to move on, guys, for the NHL draft for the Montreal Canadiens. We have a couple of things. We talk about this early, but I think we're not going to repeat. We're going to talk about, we try to see the Montreal Canadiens, what they're going to do next Friday. And they have, of course, it's one option. First of all, Montreal select 12 times on the NHL draft. They're going to also select 7 times in the first 3 rounds. Are they going to move up 2 times or 1 time or not allowed? Keep their pick 16, 17, 41, 49, 79, 81, 82. I'll be shocked if Montreal get out with 12 pick for the upcoming draft. I think they will have some kind of movement. It could be moved up or maybe trade for the 2026. But the point, Devin, is like, do you see Montreal move up at the NHL draft for the upcoming one?
Well, I mean, I think again, I think it's something they're probably exploring, and it's probably something that they're looking at. But I mean, it's hard to do, right? They're not if you tried to move up, how high do you have to move up to get the guy you want? Like, are they trying to get into the top 5 and get Caleb Desnoyers? Are they trying to get into the top 10 and try and get Brady Martin? Are they trying, do they feel like they have to move up a couple spots to get Carter Bear? What is it going to cost for you to move up? Like, do you have to give up 16 and 17 to get number 8? Do you have to trade, your 41st pick to move your 16th pick up to number 12 or 13? Like, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, right? The other issue this year is there's a lot of other teams that are willing to move their picks. Like Columbus has already said that their pick is available if anybody wants it. Vancouver looks like they're not really that interested in making their pick, and they've got it up on the market if they want. So if you want to trade the 16th pick and Vancouver is willing to trade the 15th pick, well, guess what? The 15th pick is worth more. So I like you. I would be surprised if they make all 7 of those picks that you have on the board there. I mean, I would be surprised, but I think they would love to move up. It's just a matter of whether they're able to pull it off. I think I don't know which player they've identified. Typically we've seen in the last 2 drafts with Montreal, they identify players that they really, really like and they really, really want, whether they're at the beginning of the draft or whether they're later in the draft, right? They identified Slavkovsky. That was the guy they wanted. Wasn't a big deal because they had the first overall pick. Last year they identified Demidov. That's the guy they wanted, right? And they threw up smoke screens. They didn't go to the Gold Star camp just so people didn't think that they liked him, and they did everything they could to get Demidov. So I don't know who the guy is that they've identified, and maybe he's a guy that they feel like they have to move up to get. But I mean, I think if the right deal, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but if the right deal comes around, I think they will try and move up. If they feel like the guy they really, really want is almost is going to be available when 16 comes around, like if Jack Nesbitt is the guy who they think is the best guy in the draft, then maybe they don't really worry about moving up so much. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next few days for sure.
If they move up at 12, 11, 10, 13, whatever it is, are you thinking because they're targeting one specific player, and do you think it'll be McQueen, Bear, or Eklam, or any other forward if they move up?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be McQueen. I don't think it'll be McQueen. It could be. I mean, Martone would be, I think, a great option. But I mean, again, you've probably got to get into the top 3 if you want to get Martone. I think Desnoyers would be a great option, but you have to get pretty high to get him. I really like Eklund as well. Eklund is. I think you could make the argument that Eklund is better than Frondell. He's a little bit smaller, but he's more physical. We talk about compete, right? Not a he's 6'1", but he plays hard and he plays tough. Do they feel like they have to move up to get Carter Bear, right? Is Carter Bear going to be around when they get to 16? I don't know. Like I've seen some draft, projections that say that Bear will be available when the Canadiens get to 16, but I think it's probably more likely that he gets drafted sort of in the 13 or 14 range. So maybe they do have to, give up their, 41st pick to move up to 13 or 14 and try and get Carter Bear. So I don't know that I would be perfect. I don't know that I would be that keen on them moving up to get McQueen. And again, I think one other thing we've seen from Kent Hughes is that he doesn't like to take big risks, right? And I think McQueen is a risk. So I don't think they'll move up to get McQueen. But you never know.
Yeah, you have also Smith, Atkinson, Murkoff for the defenseman about that. So this will be very interesting if they move up. They have a possibility to go there.
Yeah, Murkoff. Yeah, Murka would be the guy. I mean, Aitchison and Smith, I think, are both left-handed. Again, not that that's a huge deal because they're probably a few years away from ever playing in the NHL. But Murka being a big right-handed defenseman, I mean, again, very similar to to Reinbacher, right? Big, rangy, right-handed defenseman.
Yes. That'll be another interesting day. We're going to move on there, so we'll be surprised. Montreal move up for trade pick. Bitcoin can join that rehabilitation year injury. Too much of a risk on this one. Let's see what we got here. I think I have this one there. Let's see, get there. Target 16, 17. We talked a bit earlier for Montreal Canadiens, but if you go a little bit more where we are right now, what you feel? Is it Carbonneau, Newsbit, Ansler? If I said to you, you pick 16, 17, Montreal, select who?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those guys are an option. Hensler, I like. He's right-handed defenseman. Carbonneau, I think Carbonneau and Lakovic are kind of similar players. The knock on Carbonneau appears to be that some people think he's a bit cocky and has a bit of a bad attitude. again, I can't speak to that. I've never spoken to the kid. I don't know him. I'm going strictly on what I've heard from other people. Um, I don't know. Like, again, the Canadians are pretty big on, bringing in guys who fit the culture. So again, I think it'll all depend on how they view him and how his interview went and things like that. Um, Hensler, again, like I said, I like Hensler. Right-handed defenseman, big kid, played in a pretty crappy team last year. So, his numbers are, it's tough to judge him on his numbers. Again, I think there's other guys that, Lakovic, Reshny, Coots are all guys at 16, 17 that might be available. There's other defensemen, Cameron Reed, who I think is probably on a similar level to Hensler, but he's left-handed. So yeah, I think I don't have any issue with any of those guys. Nesbitt, I don't know that. I think Nesbitt might be a bit of a reach. I really like Malcolm Spence. Personally, I prefer Spence over Nesbitt. But Nesbitt's what's a Windsor Spitfires, big. Is he a centerman or is he a winger? I'm not sure. I can't remember offhand. But big, big forward. I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of Liam Greentree last year, right? Mainly, I guess, because they both played for the Windsor Spitfires. But when you get to that range of the draft, I think the most of the players have at least one thing wrong with them, right? It's like you don't really, in the top 10, you probably get guys who don't really have huge problems with their game. But when you're starting to get into, 15, 16, 17, 18, there's usually one thing about them that you have to be prepared to ignore or hope that they can fix or get past. Like Lakovic, it's because he doesn't have the compete level. Carbonneau, it's this attitude issue that some people think he has. So we'll see. I would be. I don't know. I don't have I really hesitate to go into a draft with specific guys in mind that I want, because you only sort of open yourself up for disappointment. And at the end of the day, the Canadian scouting staff knows a hell of a lot more about these kids than we do. They've
Oh
interviewed
yeah,
them.
we all, you
Yeah,
know what I mean, like this is the year where the NHL draft people do mock draft, like a bracket challenge, whatever it is. We're just talking about what we hear, what we know, and the
yeah,
information is coming from many different area. The expert who does scouting all the time, for Chris Peters to Broman, McKenzie, and we go there, we mix this together, we get that, and at the end of the day, um, your words or my words or the people in the chat, at the end of the day, does not change anything with the fact we're just sharing what we know, and that's we
yeah.
have the right things. The good
No,
that's what's happening there is honestly
and what I
not
mean
trying
is
to
like,
go to
I,
a direction.
yeah. Well, and the reason I say it is not to say that we shouldn't talk about it, because I think it's a really fun exercise and it's a cool thing to do. But if I'm going to say to myself that if the Canadians don't draft Justin Carbonneau at the draft, I'm going to be mad and I'm going to jump up and down and say they're stupid. If Martin Lapointe tells me that Lyndon Lakovic's a better hockey player than Justin Carbonneau, how do I can't, I can't argue with him. I mean, he knows. So like, I really, I don't like to go into a draft and say to myself, this is the guy that I think they absolutely have to take. Obviously I have my opinions, and, like I said, if they get Carter Bear out of this draft, I'm ecstatic. That's the one guy who I think really stands out for me. But if they don't get him, then presumably he wasn't available, or there's something that they've seen that means that they liked another guy better. So
I still believe Vancouver is going to take Justin Carbonneau, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
yeah,
Um, I think they like the size, everything like that. Um,
he's a very talented hockey player. He's got a ton of skill. He's got a great shot. He's got size, and like, again, one person might look at a kid and say he's cocky, and another person might look at him and say he's confident and has a lot of he's so it's they've I'm sure they've watched Justin Carbonneau play hockey dozens and dozens and dozens of times this year, with his home games being played 15 minutes away from the Bell Center. So
at the end of the day, I think we have an interview from the head coach with PMP or what I think PMP or RDS, and he don't see any problem about the character of Carbonneau. So the head coach knows
yeah,
more about who we knows behind that. So I will list this on the coach honestly. But I think Phil
Yeah,
does one. One player we don't talk a lot, and I think it's we need to talk more about this kid. But again,
yeah, McKenzie.
on Sven webs, expert scout website video, whatever it is. Some put him rare. Some put him down on the top 20. I think I see only two of them. The rest they put him to between 21 to 24, 25th. And it's a big winger, 6'1", 6'2". Work hard, compete, physical, and he put the puck in the net and he dropped this year. I think this is a wild card. And I'm
Yeah,
talking
McKenzie.
about Malcolm Spence. Um, Devon. So I don't know why he's there. I tried to do
I
some
don't.
search about him. GF liked him a lot, and Jeff told me that last week, and I said no, he's going to be a top 20, everything like that. And something like that, I said, you know what, I'm going to go more. Why he's not there? Why he don't do that? Why he's not the top 20? Why? And at the end of the day, they talk a little bit about his hands and also his skating, but I don't know why we don't
I can
talk
tell
much
you.
about Malcolm Spence.
I'll tell you. I can tell you why he. So I heard this in one interview. It was Scott Wheeler, and he was being interviewed. I think it was Scott Wheeler, and very few people know about this because even when I was talking with Jérôme Berube the other day, he didn't know about it. Malcolm Spence at the beginning of last year had an injury. He lacerated his tongue. I don't know whether he bit his tongue or what happened while he was playing hockey, but he had a really serious injury to his tongue, and it ended up getting infected, and he wasn't able to eat, and he lost like 15 to 20 pounds in the first half of the season last year, and his energy levels were like if you read the scouting reports on him, they talk about him like really like looking lethargic and whatever, and then improving significantly in the second half of the season. I think that Malcolm Spence is. I think I mentioned it earlier in the show. I love Malcolm Spence, and I think he'd be a great option. He's going to Michigan next year. He's going to be playing with Michael Hage, who is one of his best friends since childhood. Um, he put. I think he put back on 10 or 15 of the pounds that he lost, and he had a much better second half. He played in Erie on a team that really wasn't that good and had a very very defensive style system, and he came back and played well in the latter part. I think even in the playoffs. So I think Malcolm Spence is a kid who, if you can get him, if you get him at 41, I think it's awesome. I mean, if you can get him at 41, I think it's incredible. Do you think about him at 16 or 17? Maybe. I really like Malcolm Spence, and again, I think it doesn't appear that a lot of people know this about him. This injury to his tongue. But again, like I said, I heard it on. I can't remember where it was that Scott Wheeler was talking about it. But apparently he spoke to Spence, I think, at the combine, and he talked about it.
Yeah, they talk about Chris talk about the jaw, everything like that. Spence has a high competition level. Will be interesting. Like I said, guys, Nelson Montreal going to get him. I just want to sharing this with the people in the chat. Yamo Vartanen is in the house, guys. Welcome back. If you not click on the like, Pete Martin knocked the door also. Welcome back, Pete. Thanks for being part of the show. We appreciate a lot. If you have, guys, any question tonight, you can ask us. We are available for your question about NHL draft or whatever about the Montreal Canadiens or any other place. May you please wait for the Pittsburgh Penguins? Um, so you pick up player for over Logan Mayu. Are you willing to do that? Mayu who plus again the 11th pick overall pick.
Sorry, could you ask me the question again? I missed you. Cut out there for a second.
Yeah, the question is about the Pittsburgh are willing to trade the 11 to the Montreal for Mayu and Joshua Kua.
And you would have 11, 16, and 17.
No, yes, you have 11, 16, 17. So Mayu for Kua for the 11.
I would think about that. Um, I would think about that. Like, I mean, who like at 11, you're looking at getting.
A solid defenseman.
Yeah, you might get Raddy Murtka if or Aitchison,
Smith.
or Jackson Smith.
Yeah.
Um, you're almost certainly going to be able to get Carter Bear at 11. You should be
Yeah.
able to. Um, Victor Eklund is a possibility at 11. So I
Yeah.
guess the question becomes,
I
would you
would take
trade?
Eklund before Bear, by the way.
Really? Yeah. No, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
like this kid. Me, I like him since October, and I was said you have two players in October. I was said you have O'Brien and Eklam, and Eklam guys, he said Bear he compete. I agree with you, but Eklam compete, but he's more talented in my opinion at Bear. In my
Yeah.
opinion,
No, I like him.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I think he's more offensively talented for
yes,
sure. I what I like about Bear is like the forecheck and just that like he's like a young Brendan Gallagher with more offensive talent, and I think But yeah, I mean Eklund has got a good shot. He's Eklund is Eklund's a. I mean if you came out of the draft with Eklund and Carter Bear, I think that's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good draft.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely.
And a defenseman like a Hensler or somebody yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think I like both of those players. I know they're very similar, right? They're again the Canadians fans, and when they hear like size, they think oh 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Well, no, you can get size from a guy like Victor Eklund, who's only 6'1", but he plays like he's a lot bigger.
We're going to go bold predictions. So Devin's going to say yes or no about that. I have three in the NHL and two for the Montreal Canadiens, so a total of five about that. Bold prediction: Mitch Muller, a short-term deal. Do you feel that, or you see a long-term deal or a middle term, like a 5 years to 8 year, or you feel 2-3 years for Mitch Muller?
I don't think a 2 or 3 year deal is likely. I think he could do a 4 year deal. But I think it's four or more. I mean, I think obviously the attraction to a 4 year deal is that he goes to free agency again in 4 years from now when he's what 32, and the salary cap is through the roof, and it's gone up another $20 million or whatever. Um, I suspect a team that signs him is going to want to get him under contract for 8 years. But I think it's possible. So yeah, it's possible. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. I'd say like it's maybe a 30% chance that he signs less than 5 years.
Okay. The number two, the biggest trade is going to become for the Buffalo Sabres. Peterka, B Ram. Agree, or do you think that would happening or not?
Well, I guess I mean there's all kinds of things that go on with Paterka, right? So they don't want to trade him, but it doesn't look like he wants to be there. It doesn't look like they agree on contract. If they don't trade him, he becomes an RFA. So somebody offer sheets him, and then the Sabres get whatever draft picks, correspond to the offer sheet, or they trade him, and then like do they think they'll get more out of the offer sheet than they will out of a trade? I don't know. As far as Byram's gone, I think Byram's been a disappointment for me in Buffalo. I thought he would do a lot better there. To be honest with you, I think he's a good defenseman. I think he's a really good defenseman. Um, but he just doesn't seem to have done it in Buffalo. Whether that's the biggest trade of the offseason or not, I don't know. But I could very easily see either or both of those guys being traded. I doubt that Paterka is on Buffalo to start next season.
Yeah.
Byram is maybe not as certain about that, but I'd be very surprised if Paterka was a
They
Buffalo
tried to
Sabre.
trade also Samuelson and Clifton for salary cap, lower their cap. So it will be
Yeah,
interesting what happening on that one. Now, like you said, Pierre, they hire Yamo Kakalinen. So he's very active usually. I don't know what happened with Caden. Um, Kevin Adams. My third one before we move on Montreal Canadiens. The Islander trade up for James Higgins. Do you feel like they could get Sheffer and Higgins or not?
Well, I mean, what I think would be interesting would be if they traded down. So if the Islanders traded their first overall pick to, let's say Utah, right? Utah, desperate need of a defenseman. Not desperate need, but they're more in need of a defenseman, and the Islanders, can get another asset out of Utah. Whether it's a Barrett Hayton or somebody else. Like so, this is something we talked about earlier. You and I, coach, with Marco. If the Islanders were to trade the first pick to Utah for Barrett Hayton and the fourth pick, the Islanders could get Barrett Hayton and then also draft Higgins, who, for those of you who don't know, Higgins is from Long Island and is a local boy, and is very clearly a top 5 talent in this draft. They get perhaps a guy who's not as good as Matthew Schaefer, but is a pretty darn talented guy who's a local kid, and they managed to score another asset out of it. I think that could be interesting. I don't know whether it's going to happen or not, but it would be an interesting thing to think about anyway.
Would be very interesting too for the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal move up. I expect that for the Montreal Canadiens at some level. Could be the first round, second round. I see Montreal are targeting some specific player and they're going to move up. That's my prediction about that. And finally, the last one, the Montreal select Malcolm Spence. We talked about him a bit early. So I bold prediction for the Montreal Canadiens would be interesting. So we're going to bring you to the clash tonight, Mr. David. So about the Montreal Canadiens tonight for the clash, last part of the show tonight at the Hockey Nation show. And I'm going to ask you this. You have to say absolutely or not at all. The Montreal Canadiens, the maximum the pick is going to be 9 at the upcoming NHL draft. They are right now 12 before the playoff, before the draft. Do you expect they reach 10, 11, 12 pick for at the end of the NHL draft?
Maximum of 9. Wow. I'll say not at all. And the only reason I'll say not at all is just because I think they're just going to have a hard time finding people to trade with. I think they'd like to. I think they'd like to, move up and package some of those picks together to move up. But I just don't know that they're going to be able to. So again, I don't have a lot of confidence in that answer, but I'll say not at all.
Not at all. So you expect 10, 11, or 12 pick for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2. The Montreal select a defenseman at the pick number 16 or 17. Not exactly a right or a left. It's not matter. Do you think Montreal is going to select a defenseman?
Wow. I think they will pick a defenseman with one of those 2 picks. So absolutely.
Absolutely for the pick for them. And if I ask you what will be the defenseman you think they're going to targeting?
I mean, the one that seems to make the most sense is Logan Hensler, just because he'll be around at that pick. He's right-handed.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. I like Cameron Reed as well, but he's left-handed. I think he'll be around at that pick. Some people have Keyshawn Aitchison that far down. I don't know that that's going to really happen.
I don't see that.
And he's a lefty as well. So I think they will. I think they will take a pick. Logan Hensler plays at Wisconsin, so they do have a connection with Wisconsin. That Cole Caulfield was there. But again, I don't. Blake Fiddler is another guy who might be around there. I'm not as high on Blake Fiddler, but he's rated sort of anywhere between 23 and 25 or 27. But yeah, I do think they will take a defenseman, and the most likely guy. I mean, obviously, I'm looking at Elite Prospects draft guide, and they've got Radim Mertka at 15, which I mean is crazy to me. But if somehow they could get Radim Mertka, I think that would be pretty wild too.
Yeah, I just got just to let you know. So Ensler is a right defenseman. I think you said left, but he's a right defenseman.
No,
Looking for
Hensler's right. Yeah,
yeah,
Hensler's a righty, and Cameron Reed is lefty. Aitchison is lefty.
yeah.
Yeah, Mertka's a righty.
The next one, the Montreal select Justin Carbonneau.
I know you. I mean, I know your answer because you told me earlier, but I'm going to say not at all. I'm going to say not at all. Um, I think there's going to be other options at 16, 17 that they're going to prefer over Justin Carbonneau.
Yeah, I just feel that
But
Montreal not
it's
going
not that I
to.
don't like the kid. I'm not saying I don't like him. I think there's going to be other guys.
Yeah, I agree with you about that. The next one, the Montreal Canadiens do a huge trade. So when talking about huge trade, guys, not like a bottom six, but something huge you not expect for the Montreal Canadiens. I will say to you until July 1st. So not necessarily this draft until July 1st. You expect Montreal to make a huge trade or not?
Not at all. I don't think they'll make a huge trade. I don't think they're interested in giving up. I don't think they're interested in giving up the assets that would be necessary to make a trade that we would call huge. I don't think they're interested in giving up very much from their current roster. I don't think they're interested in giving up any of their higher profile prospects. I don't see them moving any of their top six forwards. I don't see them moving any of their top four defensemen. I don't see them moving, any of their top five or six prospects. So I don't see them making a huge trade. I think they're confident in the track that they're on and the development that's in front of them. And yes, they might make a small, like they'll make like an Alex Carrier kind of trade, which turned out to be a very big trade, when in the result. But I don't think we would describe that as a huge trade. I think they might make something small like that, but I don't see them sort of, they're not going to trade Cole Caulfield for Bo Horvat or anything. I mean, I don't like, it's not. I don't think that's going to happen.
I agree with you. I think if the opportunity is there, Devin, they will go with the opportunity, right? And but if they feel it's not, they're not going to try to push everything. That's my point behind that. And they're not going to get overpay. I completely agree with you when you said they're going to stay on their plan and to be patient. The people in the chat all feel the same way. So that's a good point about this. So Montreal sign you have free, and he's going to be part of the roster. So when I said that is because they could sign a second backup goalie for the Laval Rocket or sign a player like they're going to be helping the Laval Rocket, for example, like Alex Barry-Boulet last season. So I just want to make the difference between that. So Montreal signed a UFA, and he's going to be part of the roster for Montreal Canadiens at the beginning of season 25-26. So absolutely not at all.
I'm going to say not at all. Is it possible, like you say, that they go and sign a goalie who could end up being in the NHL roster? Maybe. Well, the reason I'll give you the reason why I think not at all, and that's because I think that Kent Hughes has been pretty clear that he's not going to bring in any players that will block the route for any of their prospects to the NHL. And to me, they're not going to bring in a UFA who's, I don't think they're going to bring in a UFA that's going to be a top six forward or a top pairing defense. So if we are talking about them signing a UFA, it's probably going to be someone that's at the bottom of the lineup, in which case I think they would much rather, give that job to, one of their younger prospects than have, sign a UFA who's going to be a fourth line winger, right? They'd rather, give a chance to Owen Beck to do that, or to, I mean, Florian Jack, I don't think is ready just yet, but I think they'd rather, they'd rather bring one of their own players in to play that role than a free agent.
Great point about that. People talk about fun thing and continue to sharing all of you guys. Montreal Canadiens signed Nicolas Heller or Nicolas Ag or they trade for Nicolas Ag or they sign Brock Bozer. Absolutely or not?
Not at all. Not at
You
all. I
don't.
don't see Haig. I don't see why they would want Haig. Honestly, I mean, obviously he's big, but he's a left-handed defenseman. I know he can play on the right-hand side. I don't see the interest in him. Besser's interesting, but it would be. I mean, there's no guarantees with Brock Besser. Like, he's not a guy who, obviously, he's the guy who's capable of playing in your top six, but he's also a guy who's capable of, doing nothing. I like Nick Ehlers. I, you know, he, I, I mean, I live in Halifax. Nick Ehlers played his junior hockey for the Halifax Mooseheads. I've watched Nick Ehlers play dozens and dozens and dozens of hockey games, and to be honest with you, he was almost as talented as a Halifax Moosehead as Nathan McKinnon was. And I really like the player, but I don't know that the Canadiens. I don't know that he fits in the Canadiens' plan. So I would say not at all to those three players.
Great about that one with that. And finally, one word for can use this week. One word. How can use going to be this week?
Probably like I'll say two words.
Yep.
But they both mean the same thing. Like, if you want to be boring, I would say patient. If you want to be a little bit more, I would say cool. He's going to be cool this week. He's going to be cool. Like, he's going to be, he's going to listen to everybody. He's going to think about, all of the offers. He's going to, do whatever, but he's not going to be chasing anybody around. He's not going to be, trying to make a big move. Like, he's going to do what's best for the team, and he's just going to be a cool guy. Like, he's going to just be cool and calm.
A lot of things in the chat, guys. I like it. Bonne chance, surf. Busy, concentrated, deal. I will be back. Yamo. Bad explain the draft. He missed get Zegras. One word, don't spend too much money. McDavid is a free next season. PLW. I think my first reaction when you talk, I was already prepared, Devin, because I know I'm going to ask this question. It was the word patient, en mon opinion, and pensive for Roy. But also with patient, Devin, I think it's going to be one word, a listener. He's going to listen and or observer. But I think you have a lot of great things could happen for that one. Mark Groove the procession because he want to make it penetrate. He get rejected. About this one. With almost at the end of the show, it's 10, 20 guys, everything on that. People talk a little bit more. They give a lot. It's fun option. We talk about many things tonight, Devin. We're going to see again you Wednesday for the mock draft of the alternative hockey nation. Wednesday night with Marco, Franks, and Randy. Thursday night we have a show. We're going to be off tomorrow. We'll do baseball game tomorrow night because at least something had big happened tomorrow. Otherwise, we're going to do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we're going to go all about the NHL draft. So that's going to happen during the week. Hockey Nation show this week. But if you see right now, you predict what would you like the Montreal happen to them? You get out of this NHL draft and see this what I'm looking for the Montreal, and you'll be very satisfied about their performance at the NHL draft, Devin.
So it's going to be a weird answer, I think. My answer is that I would like to come out of the draft, and regardless of who they pick, I want it to be similar to last year where Kent Hughes is interviewed and he talks about the guy they got with their 16th and 17th pick, and he talks about them in the way he talked about Ivan Demidov last year. talks about that player being, this is a guy that we've identified all along. This is a guy that we really like. He's got character. He interviewed really well with us. This is the guy that we really wanted, and we were able to get him. And I think he's going to be a good asset to the team. That's kind of what So obviously I could name players that I really really like. But like I said, I would love, if you remember last year, I'm sure you do, Coach. I'm sure you watched it, like the interview that they did with Kent Hughes shortly after they made that pick. And he talked about how they went over to Russia and they knew Demidov, and he was a guy that they had identified as early as like December, and that Bobrov had gone. Like, I want to have that feeling after the draft, like I had last year, where that they've made a really good pick, and that they've picked a guy. Obviously picking at 5 is different than picking at 16 and 17, but that they've picked the guy that they really, really wanted, and that the guy fits the mold and the profile that the Canadiens have for players on their team. That's kind of the way I want to come out of the draft. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah, you have outdoor fans in the chat. New Jersey Devils, Buffalo. We have Boston Bruins. We have the New York Islanders. I can recall it very quickly for the people in the chat. Vancouver Canucks. You have a specific team are going. Well, you're going to be really active. Where you expect like that team was. You know what? There was no expect that. Whatever. You have any team you said this is going to be a really busy weekend for them.
Well, I mean, a team like Philadelphia, just because they have so many picks, right? Philadelphia, I think, they have 5 or 6 picks in the first 2 rounds, something like that. Like, I think Philadelphia has a ton of picks. So I think
they tried today one of them, but yes.
Yeah, they're gonna, but that's busy, right? Like, I think, to me, they're either gonna have to pick a lot of players, or they're gonna have, they're gonna be involved in trades, right? So I see them being busy. Chicago could be busy, moving around, trying to, to get the guys that they want to get. I'd love for Montreal to be busy, but I don't know that they're going to be able to be. Vancouver, I think, you could see Vancouver try and make a trade. Columbus could try and make a trade in the first round. Yeah, should be interesting.
I think the Flyers will be aggressive. From Marco Larabie said in the chat. You have, of course, you have someone said Chicago. Victor says Chicago. You have the Flyers 3 first-round pick, the Nashville 2 first-round pick, Montreal 2 first-round pick. Pittsburgh could be anything with 2 first-round pick. The Calgary Flame have 2 first-round pick. So was the Sharks, I believe, they have 2 first-round pick also. So they have.
Well, that's why it's so hard for Montreal. Yeah, that's why it's going to be so hard for Montreal to move up, right? Because they're not the only team that has multiple picks in the first round. Like, like you say, like if the Canadiens wanted to make a trade to move up, well, Pittsburgh can, it's tough. There's going to be a lot of teams with a lot of assets in that first round that you're competing with if you want to make a trade.
Yeah, it will be very interesting happening, guys, during the week. Don't forget, guys, we'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, tomorrow night, baseball, Wednesday, the NHL Draft mock draft, Thursday, the preview of the NHL Draft. Friday, we'll be live at 7 o'clock. Possible, Devin, and I don't know where. Are you live Friday night?
I don't know what I'm going to do Friday night. I haven't really decided. I will probably do a show on Thursday. I want to do my own draft preview show on Thursday.
Yep.
Probably, but again, I don't really have plans.
Okay.
I don't know.
So anyway, what we do usually last year, and after was with me, but what we do, Marco pop up and people pop up after the pick of the Montreal Canadiens, who at the end of the 32 front pick. So if you have nothing after that, whatever it is, you can say, play what year. It's not you have to be there, but if you want to see your comments about the Montreal Canadiens 16-17, you're welcome to join.
I don't know if we have a wedding this weekend, and my wife is the maid of honor, so I probably will be running around with the wedding. But if I have time to pop in, I definitely will let you know.
Yeah, let people talk about Zegras in the chat, everything like that, and they talk about Mitch Cobb also. So really interesting to hear that, all of you guys in the chat. I'm going to conclude the show tonight, Devin, but I want to say thanks so much. Glad to see you again in a long time. I keep a couple of a lot of week for off for Marco and you, and again, what's going on with Inartat. So for all the people that chat to Mr. Devin, we want the best for Mr. Inartat. We pray and we consider to give him the best and come back very soon for maybe Mr. Inartat. But thanks again to join me live, Devin, and you can follow Devin on the Recliner Sport at the YouTube channel. And during the season, off season. So this is the place to go. He does
check out
all
the video.
the show after the game usually, right?
Yeah, and check out the video. Yeah, I usually do a show after the game, and then I do a show as well. But check out the video. I just posted it today, where I interviewed Jerome Berube, who's one of the top. I think we could say he's one of the top draft experts, certainly in Quebec for sure. And he's the lead scout at hockeyprospects.com. So he and I talked for about 45, 50 minutes. We talked about the Canadiens and who he thinks the Canadiens might draft and who are the best options. And it was a really good chat. And I think we didn't sort of do the typical where we just talked about specific players. We went a little bit deeper than that because everybody's doing that kind of thing. It's similar to what Coach and I did here tonight. So I think you find it interesting if you want to go check it out.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Devin. We wish you an amazing, great night. I can wait to see you Wednesday night.
I appreciate it, and I look forward to Wednesday as well.
All right. Have a good night. It was Devin, guys, from the Maritime with us tonight. And a lot of people in the chat, guys, are talking about the Mishkov and the Zegras. I'm going to give you my opinion on that one. First of all, Mishkov, guys, want to play with the Flyers. That's how he doesn't want to play nowhere. It was an agreement with the Flyers. He was targeting the Flyers. He wanted to get there. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. The Flyers select the team. On Zegras, guys, here's my problem with Zegras. It's not about the players, by the way. But if you look about all the winner of the Stanley Cup for many years, how many teams have a winger at 5'7", have a winger at 6 foot, have a center at 5'11", and they have a center at 6 foot, and then you have after that 2 winger at 6'5" and 6'4". When you have more at 1 players at below 6 foot, the chance of Stanley Cup is not there. So what Zegras bring on the Montreal Canadiens, it's not what the Montreal are targeting. They want big body. They want players compete. The injuries, everybody complaining about injury for Kubidak and Kenan Coley. But Zegras have 4 major injury the last 3 years. Wrist, legs, shoulder. So for me, it's not going to be a player going to help in the Montreal Canadiens. I carry on at $7 million. I don't think this is the right call. Now you're going to say he did not pay enough. But the reason because he did not pay him enough in return because he is a low value for the Anaheim Ducks. So also, I didn't know he have a clause on his contract, but the fact he want to play with the Flyers because he would join his buddy Jimmy Trestel, or he said, yeah, a Cole Caulfield. I just don't see as the grass and the fit of the Montreal Canadiens. At least for what we see him during his performance with Anaheim Ducks. He's a flashy player, have a good second to third year, but since that, he fall apart. And I'm not sure he was the right call to get him for that one. A little bit like Mason Marchment. People so good get Mason Marchment, but he doesn't want to play in Montreal in Canada at all. So thanks so much, Randy. Cash Fan is in the house. Great show. Always you're welcome, my friend. But no, knock the door before we leave the building. As a good century point with Marcage on first line. Remember that. Yes, it's okay, Frenchy. And I hope he make 100 points with the Flyers. But the problem is the Flyers not going to make the playoff with Zegras. And they're not going to perform in the playoff. And we'll see if he can get 90 points and see if he can play 82 games. So it's a lot of if with Zegras. We don't need that. We need a big body. We need compete players. We need players who want to sacrifice, pay the price. I don't see that for Zegras. Obviously, that's what he showed to the hockey world in the last 3 seasons in NHL. Guys, Zegras, right? Zegras played with an amazing, great players. with Anaheim Ducks in the last 3 seasons. Zegras last year, 57 games, 32 points, 12 goals. So he can get maybe 20 goals if he's really lucky. 50 points at $7 million. Zegras, 30 points last year. The year before, 15. And the year before, at 2020, he has 61 points and 65 points. The maximum goal he did is 23 goals in NHL. It is who is Zegras. Thanks again, people in the chat. Surf, welcome back, Surf. I think it's the first time Surf with us. If you are, hopefully you're going to subscribe and click on the like and come back next time. You bring a lot of energy and comments in the chat on that one. Quand j'ai vu la transaction, j'ai pensé c'était une blague, mon Nicolas. Il va sur Nicolas, c'est ton heure d'aller te coucher toi aussi, en passant. N26, the Hawks to get him help on that one, Nicolas. I don't know what N26 is that one. Rain Tub, make some comments right there, guys. And that's all we got tonight, guys, on the special edition of the Ab Summer Target. I can't wait to see all of you tonight. Tomorrow night, guys, tomorrow night we do the game Chicago-St. Louis, the Cars baseball. Just because at least you have something big. I could change the mind, but if it's not, going to be baseball tomorrow night. But if it's there, we're going to be back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Sunday. All about the Montreal Canadiens. And I can wait to see you next week for the UFA day. I don't like the UFA anymore, honestly, as a live stream, because everything happening, guys, before that. I hate that. The NHL should be very careful about what they have to announce. And if they have a deal between Anaheim and a specific player, just wait at 1 o'clock afternoon and 2 o'clock. Just don't announce this before the. Now you have a Frank Silverly, you have many expert connection in NHL. They announce this on Twitter, and it's just a mess. But it is what it is. What a great night with Devin tonight. What a great night to be with all of you guys. Without you, this would be impossible. And the summer is in town. The summer is right now in the corner for all of you. And take advantage, guys, to rest during summer. Do something out of the box. I don't know. If you're not a swimmer, try to do something. Like, try to accomplish something you never do usually. And to be out of your comfort zone. And I don't know, whatever you want to accomplish. And I think that helping bring your mindset right. We are at the beginning of the second half of the year. And the next 6 days, maybe not, 7 days, 8 days. It's time to restart. It's time to refocus. It's time to looking what it was right, what it was wrong, and be ready for the second half of the season. It's a half time is coming, like a football game. The half time, what do? They make some adjustment. They see what's going on the scoreboard, and they talk with players. Said, you know what, we need to do this, we need to do that. Same thing with you. Be ready for the second half. I'm telling you right now, you can accomplish a lot of things in your life. It's all about if you are willing to do it. Pay the price, sacrifice, and make this happening. You have everything inside of you to be a great, best version of yourself, because that's who you are. You are awesome. You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you. Mr. Michael M&M is in the house tonight. Welcome back. And of course, be well, BL. Find a way not only to dominate your day, but find a way to dominate the first half of what? I can see right now. I see him. I can hear him. And after we said to me, 2025. And that's all, guys, we got tonight. I can wait to see you. Thank you, moderator Ron and Luciano. We want to thank other people. Click on the likes tonight. I can wait to see you tomorrow night. Until then, my friend, have an amazing, great night at the Hockey Nation Show and the Ab Nation and all the cheese. And tell them one thing. We Love you, friend. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Until then, booyah! Good night, everybody.